Greetings from Malaysia. Selamat datang and welcome to the virtual colloquium by the Institute of Teacher Education International Languages Campus, or better known as IPGKBA, with the theme Humanizing Teaching and Learning, the Dynamics of Language Education in the Waves of Global Change. I'm Norain Wong Abdullah, lecturer from IPGKBA, your moderator for today, hosting the fourth session of this virtual colloquium. Good to see everyone again this beautiful Friday morning. It is bright and sunny in Malaysia. And I hope you will stay tuned to the end of this session because we have a very special homegrown speaker who is very global from the Malaysia's first and oldest university, University Malaya. So before we start off, there's a few housekeeping matters to be reminded. For all our participants, please be informed that everyone who attends this webinar will be given an e-certificate after each session. Therefore, please register for the session as the registration link is pinned above. Please be reminded as well to fill in only once, both for your attendance and registration, and to ensure that we have your correct email details to avoid issues later on. As usual, we love to hear from you. If you have any questions, so do feel free to send into the chat box. For our speaker, we'll be answering questions at the end of the session. Don't worry if your questions are not answered, we will be sure to follow up later on. We would appreciate too if you can share today's webinar with your students, colleagues, and social networks. Now, let's get up and personal with our speaker today, Dr. Patricia Nora Riget, Senior Lecturer at the Faculty of Languages and Linguistics, University Malaya, and she is also the Deputy Director of the International Relations Office, IRO, from University Malaya. Dr. Patricia actually has a very long love story with France, as she received her Bachelor and Masters of Arts of Teaching of French as a Foreign Language from the Franche-Comté University, and a Master's on Research and Doctorate in Language Sciences, Teaching French as a Foreign Language from the University of Strasbourg, France. To date, she has published more than 30 papers in reputable journals, books, and conference proceedings, both locally and internationally. Her field of interest are in areas of didactics of foreign languages, language education, and ethno-linguistics, with a secondary interest in internationalization of higher education institutions. So for those who are interested in learning in Malaysia, can check out University Malaya or can check out later on with Dr. Pat. With this, let's hear from a speaker who will be sharing her insights on alternative assessment in foreign language teaching, teachers versus students' views brought forth during the COVID lockdown in Malaysia. So let us welcome Dr. Patricia Nora Riget. Good morning, Dr. Pat.
Good morning, Nora. Yeah, good morning, Norain. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Yeah. Okay. So, well, firstly, I would like to congratulate IPGKBA for organizing this colloquium. Yeah. Well, so let me start, I think.
Yes,
so
over
good
to
morning.
You, Dr. Pat.
Yes. Thank you very much. So a very good morning and bonjour to everybody who is with us this morning. Hope that everybody is doing fine, yeah, despite still undergoing the pandemic, yeah. And well, I'm honored, in fact, to be here to be able to share my insights, yeah, on the topic of alternative assessment in foreign language teaching, yeah. So, well, so let us start. I will share my screen. I hope I can share screen. All right. All right. Well, just tell me if you all can see my screen. Yeah? Norain, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can. Your screen is beautiful.
Okay, thank you.
Clear.
Yes. Yeah.
Very clear.
Then I can start my presentation then. Okay, so my topic is on alternative assessment in foreign language teaching. So teachers versus students' views, or sometimes we can call it perceptions. Yeah. So here you have my email address if you want if you would like to write to me after the presentation. Yeah, so I'm from University of Malaya, in fact, from the Department of Asian and European Languages, Faculty of Languages and Linguistics, University Malaya. All right. So this is the outline of my presentation. Basically, my presentation will be divided into two sections. Okay. So the first sections is just to give an overview of what assessment, alternative assessment, the differences or the distinction between alternative assessment and traditional assessment, and also the advantages and disadvantages of these two types of assessment or two forms of assessment. And the second part of my presentation will be more on the it is like a report of a small scale study that I've conducted at my department to examine a bit, okay, their views on the use of alternative assessment to replace the final examination during the last 3 semesters. As you know, during the last 3 semesters, of course, we had to do online teaching, remote learning, and then, of course, we couldn't have our final examination, physical examination. So all lecturers, teachers in our department had to, of course, think of another way, okay, to conduct the assessment, because students still need to have their results. Yeah. So the second part will be, as you can see, it's like, alternative assessment methods, alternative to exams, and yes, the findings or the report from the small scale study. I call it exploratory study. Okay, the case of University of Malaya, and then of course I'll do the conclusion and also how we can move forward from there. Yeah. All right. So the introduction, well, I think as a teacher or as a lecturer, we know that assessment is an integral part of our job. Yeah. So why? Because we are mostly required to assess our students' progress and achievement as part of the teaching and learning process. And assessment is also important for students. Yeah. Why? Because they would like to know, okay, how much progress they have made during the learning process and how advanced they are at the end of the course, compared usually, because it's like when they have grades, of course, I mean, we have been students before. So the first thing we do when we see our results, our marks being before, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, it was pasted on the wall, and then we'll be like, okay, what did I get? And then you try to look at your colleagues' marks, so it's like comparing, our marks with the others. But of course, I think personally, yeah, the results are very important, because that will show, that all our effort has been compensated. It's like, okay, we pass and we go to the next level, be it like learning languages, of course, from level 1 to level 2, level 3, and so on. And of course, because of that, we can say that assessment, okay, is to be considered as a motivating factor in language teaching and learning. I believe that people who like to learn language, they always look forward to a certificate. Yeah. And how to, I mean, to give a certificate, okay, of their proficiency level, it's of course through assessment. They have to go through an assessment, and then they have to get the grades, and only then, of course, the level can be validated. Yeah. Right. So now, because the topic is on alternative assessment, so what is alternative assessment? I think most of us, we have read, okay, works, or on alternative assessment. So here, I just put down a list. So it's a blanket term that covers any number of alternatives to standardized tests with the contextualized test items. Yeah. So standardized tests, very important term. Decontextualized. Yes. It's authentic, comprehensive, or performance assessment, and usually designed by the teachers to gauge students' understanding of materials. So the word understanding is very important. It's no more just the product to see just the result, but through alternative assessment, we try also to look at the process. So a form of student performance grading that allows for a more holistic approach to student assessment. Okay, so it's not just to see if the student have answered it right or wrong, and then we give the points, yeah, but holistic in the sense that that's where I later that's I will share with you how in fact alternative assessment help, okay, to fulfill, okay, what we call now the needs for graduate attributes, because all the how do you call it, the skills that a student should have. And a method of evaluation that measure a student's level of proficiency in a subject as opposed to the student's level of knowledge. So it's not only knowledge, okay, but know-how, creativity. Its overall goal is to allow students to demonstrate their knowledge. So there's performance here and execute tasks. Okay, so that's why you will see, the tools or the instrument or the type of assessment is different from the traditional one. Yeah. So alternative assessment versus traditional assessment. Yeah. So traditional assessment, what is it? So it is to say that it's often focused on learners' ability of memorization and recall. So if you're good at memorization, then you can do well in your tests. Okay. Which are lower level of cognition, because that one is more on only memorizing and to recall. Assessment practice is mainly based on testing basic knowledge, yeah, because especially when it's a test or an exam where there's limited time, and they're there with paper and pencil, of course, it's just have to put down whatever you have in your mind, what you can recall. You can't go and check, for example, in the books or reference books, or in the internet, for extra additional information about the topic, or about the, for example, the terms or concepts or whatever. And widely used assessment tools are multiple choice tests, true false tests, short answers, and essays, and provide less useful information about students' understanding, and assessment methods that prevent finding out students' skills and their developmental potential. So these are traditional assessment. Okay. And of course, alternative assessment, on the other hand, it's focused on what learners know as well as what they do not know. Okay, because if you have read, okay, write-ups or articles on alternative assessment, you can see that usually alternative assessment, like like portfolios or projects based, or even like summaries, it's where students, they will do the research, and then they will write the report, and then of course we as teachers, we're supposed to give feedback, okay, on their work. So in a way, of course, students will know, okay, their strengths and weaknesses. And for us also to know where are their strengths and where are their weaknesses, and how can we help them, okay, to proceed with their learning. And it says that it assess higher order thinking. Attention is on students' problem solving skills. Yeah, because usually we give them, if it's a project, of course, there's always a problem that they have to solve. Critical thinking, analyzing, because sometimes they do need to do research. Reasoning, okay, they have to come out with their opinions and then synthesize it, The ability to apply their knowledge in new problems, okay, and to express oral and writing. Okay, so the techniques or tools used, you see, so if the in traditional assessment is more like multiple choice tests, this one is usually portfolios, projects, journals, peer review, and so on. Okay, and it says that it measures students' performance and development in learning process. So these are the, how do you call it, the positive things about alternative assessment. Now, but we still have to look at the advantages and disadvantages of these two assessment forms. Okay, so if you look at traditional assessment, the advantages, of course, the good thing, they are objective, reliable, and valid, because it's like right or wrong, okay, 1 point or 0 points, you see. And we have the how do you call it, the key answer, the rubric, very straightforward, you know. Mm. And sometimes all the question has been vetted and we have a question bank, you know. So this is especially true for standardized tests and other types of multiple choice tests. And of course, time saving in grading. If it's multiple choice, of course, it's very fast. Yeah. Disadvantages. So, of course, especially for the students, you know, compression of an entire semester of work into a single hour of testing, because we know that usually, okay, the traditional assessment, we use it as a summative, okay, assessment. Okay, so if it's a work that is, you know, an assessment that assess a whole semester work, so sometimes, of course, it can misrepresent, okay, the effort of the students. What on that day, you know, the students, they're not feeling well, or just because they didn't revise that section, or sometimes there's students who have, you know, because especially during the pandemic, you can imagine people have so many issues, you know. So of course they will not be able to do well, but in that way, of course, they will be penalized, you know. So that's the disadvantage. And it limits a student potential and does not allow out of the box thinking or being creative. Yeah, because it's like there's no creativity. All you need to do is just to answer the question. Okay. You multiple choice, fill the blanks, you know. It's not like you coming up, for example, with an outline, if it's like a report, you know, even though there's a format that you have to follow, but still you have the creativity. You have the choice of selecting what materials, what information you want to put in your portfolio or in your report, for example. Now, alternative assessment, the advantages. So it gives the student the opportunity to demonstrate the depth and scope of what they have learned, rather than being limited to just a few response on a traditional test or exam. Of course, this is very straightforward, yeah. So they can demonstrate, okay, their ability, their capacity, okay, if it's a language. So of course, let's say if it's like a topic on civilization, so they can always go and do research, you know, talking about, for example, we call in French jours fériés, congé, public holidays. So they can do the comparison, you know, between Malaysia and France, something like that. So yeah. Disadvantages, of course, carry some concern in terms of subjectivity, reliability, and validity, because, as you know, when it comes to projects, when it comes to portfolios, of course, we have the rubric, but still, the subjectivity is still there in terms of when we assess students' work. You know, sometimes, of course, it's because of the language, it's because of the content. You know, so. Very high subjectivity in the way how we're going to grade the students' work. Yeah. And of course, can be laborious in terms of time and energy spent by the teacher. Okay. When you have like 40 students with 40 reports, 40 portfolios. Okay. So it is very time consuming. Yeah. And all right. Now, so alternative assessment methods, that is alternative to exams. So why am I looking at this topic? Because as you know that, because of pandemic, so remote teaching, so with remote learning or remote teaching, of course, this does not allow universities to proceed with business as usual in the form of closed book, invigilated or time limited examination. So we have to find a way, you know, to conduct our examinations. So but then, okay, the good thing is, of course, if you look at the advantages or of the alternative assessment, it's not advantages. It's more like the philosophy behind it. You will see that, okay, alternative assessment fits into, okay, the teaching of foreign languages in higher education. Why? Because when we talk about higher education, we talk about graduate attributes, we talk about program learning outcomes. So this, with alternative assessment, of course, we can assess, okay, we can look at students' ability in interpersonal skills, communicative skills. We look at how they can work collaboratively with the colleagues, and we look at their creative capacities. And it's no more like just looking at the way how they answer the question correctly. Okay. And most of the time, if it's traditional assessment, of course, abstract questions. Okay. For example, if it's just grammar, fill in the blanks, and then conjugate the verbs. That's all. And then, of course, there's a need to design an assessment with a characteristic that can support trusting relationship and care for students' well-being, especially during the pandemic. But then we must also ensure that the assessment, are challenging and it's meaningful for the students, and they know that it's an assessment whereby, of course, they can, for example, develop, all these skills, not only to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding, but also to develop the graduate attributes, or also the soft skills. Yeah. Now, example of alternative assessment methods, I think this one, all of us can just get this through our reading. So I just list it down here: student portfolios, open book tests, of course, take-home assessment, collaborative testing, there's performance tests, summaries, reports, interviews, and concept maps, or sometimes we call it also infographic, and journals. Yeah, we don't have the time, so I wouldn't go through each one of it. Yeah. And when we talk about assessment in foreign language teaching and learning, especially for European languages, we can say that it is still done in a very traditional way, because it's a high-stake exam, or test. And when we look at, for example, for the teaching of French, Spanish, and Italian, German, I think most of our teachers are familiar with what we call the CFR, Common European Framework. So with this one, when I refer to it, it is, when it comes to assessment, it's to describe a language learner's ability in terms of speaking, reading, listening, and writing. So categorized into 3 levels: level A, basic user; level B, independent user; and level C, proficient user. And we know that these levels further categorized into 6 levels, being A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. And here I put the name of the exam. For example, French is DELF and DALF, for Spanish DELE, Italian CELI, and for German, so Goethe Zertifikat, or the test DAF. And it's a high-stake exam whereby, of course, even in the marking, it's very strict. It's very, standardized. Yeah. And each examination comprises sections testing the 4 skills. Yeah. The oral production and reception, and written production and reception. So, of course, for all of us who are teaching foreign languages, we are so, for example, I think we are so influenced by this type of this way of assessing our students. So now when it comes to now even as lecturers of foreign languages, we have to think of on the alternative method of assessing. That's where, of course, we have to do a reading and look back which are the type of assessment that we can use with our students. And so this small scale study is to look at that. Yeah. So just to share with you how is the assessment methods, for the foreign language programs, in our department. So it's a degree program. So that's why you have 2 different types of courses. One is the language proficiency courses, and the other one is what we call the academic courses. Yeah. So for the language proficiency courses, because they come in with zero knowledge, so of course they have to do the language proficiency courses too before they can continue with what we call the academic courses. So they have the continuous assessment and final examination. So for the continuous assessment, it's more like they're given tests, when classes are being done physically, quizzes, assignments, oral presentations. Final examination, usually it's final written examination, and final oral, it's also held, but before the final written examination. Yeah. As for the academic courses, whereby, of course, all the applied courses like literature, translation, civilization, syntax, phonetics, morphology, discourse and text, and so on. So this one, they have the continuous assessment. And for that continuous assessment, they'll be given tests, quizzes, assignments, individual group presentations, and of course, the other component that is important is the final examination, the final written. So you can see here, there's always a final examination that is in the form of final written examination. Yeah, being held during the examination week. Okay, so what happened during the pandemic? Okay, because final examination cannot be held. Okay, so that's when, of course, okay, the university, okay, inform the lecturers, okay, that they have to think of the alternative assessment methods, okay. So lecturers to replace the final examination starting from semester 2, okay, 2019-2020. So for the last 3 semesters, okay, and only programs accredited by the professional bodies permitted to have the final exam. So ours is not a professional program. So all alternative assessment with the rubrics must go through the vetting process. It still has to go through the vetting process because for final examination, we have the vetting process, okay, be it at the department or program level, okay, before they conducted. And this is very important, need to limit the alternative assessment, preferably not more than 2, okay. So let's say for the final examination, you have only 1 paper, okay, be it, for example, 40% or 60%. But when you want to replace that with alternative assessment methods, you have to think of not more than 2 types of assessment. Yeah. Methods used must measure the CLOs, the course learning outcomes that need to be achieved. So that's also another issue, because when you think of it, when you, as you know, in the university, okay, it's quite rigid. It's very structured, whereby, okay, at the beginning of the semester already, in our forms, we have stated, how the course is going to be delivered, the delivery method, lecture, or for example, maybe discussion, or tutorial, and then you will have the types of assessment, okay, it's either test, quizzes, whatever, okay, and then when you prepare the question, it has to be aligned with the course learning outcomes. So now, when you are asked to, of course, prepare the alternative, use the alternative assessment methods, that's when, of course, you have to ensure, okay, that the rubric, okay, will, of course, assess, okay, or will feed into that course learning outcomes. Yeah. And then submission or alternative assessment is to be done through Moodle platform because we have our own Moodle platform. So now we're going to, the exploratory study conducted. Yeah, it's small scale. So the objective is to examine the teachers' and students' views towards alternative assessment methods, okay, to replace the final examination, which was implemented during the pandemic. So 3 semesters. Yeah. So since we couldn't meet up with the students, neither with the teachers. So, of course, the instruments used was just the Google form, and the respondents was only students and lecturers or teachers from the Department of Asian European Languages, Faculty of Languages and Linguistics. Basically, the Google form, okay, was, okay, or the questionnaire, okay, was to find out if lecturers and students, okay, have knowledge of what alternative assessment is, if they have used alternative assessment prior to the pandemic, okay, and also to find out if they are open to the ideas, okay, to continue using alternative assessment to replace the final examination. But that is another issue because again, it's in the university, we have the MQF form whereby we have already indicated the type of exam that we're going to use. So that will need, of course, work, okay, at the lecturers level and at the department level. Now, okay, so number of respondents, okay, so 19 for the teachers and lecturers, so that represents 65% of the teachers and lecturers, because there are about 29 lecturers in the department. Okay, so languages taught, of course, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Spanish, Thai, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Malay, and all the teachers indicated that they are teaching the language proficiency, academic courses, and some of them also teach external elective courses. As for the students respondent, 104 responded to the questionnaire. That represents 50.9% of the total population of students in the department. There are about 204 students, yeah. And of course, study programs, there are 5 programs, 5 bachelor programs, bachelor in, the foreign language and linguistics. So Spanish with 26.9, the highest, French, Japanese, Italian, and German. So all the year of studies are represented, with most of the students or respondents are from the second and the third year. Yeah. Now, the types of alternative assessment methods used. So what are the types? So you can see for the top 3 for the lecturers and teachers, N is the number, but it's the frequency. Yeah, 17 of them say that they use video presentation, assignment, group presentation. So these are the top 3 for the teachers, for the lecturers. Whereas for the students, okay, assignment, online quiz, video presentation, and group presentation. So what the lecturers have indicated are reflected also in the students. But remember that these students also, when they answer the question, also they refer not only to the department courses, that department courses mean courses taught by the lecturers, teachers in the department, but also courses that are being taught at the faculty and university. So that's why sometimes you can see, a little bit of differences here. And for the others, you can see the list here, of course, like project paper, online quiz, open book test, learning portfolio, learning reflections, infographic, individual or presentation take-home test, and here you have it here too. And of course, interview here, the students, yeah. Now, one of the question is, of course, we'd like to know about their knowledge about the alternative assessment. Yeah, if they know about it, if if they have idea of what it is. So, the respondents, you can see that, okay, nearly, in fact, 63%, 64% of them, okay? So good to very good for the teachers, okay, for the lecturers, and for the students too. So we can say that both teachers and students understand what alternative assessment is, yeah? Now, with regards to the prior experience, if they have used alternative assessment, okay, before the pandemic. So for the lecturers, you can see like 11 out of the 19 said no, 8 said yes, okay. And those who have used it, they say, okay, they've done it for video presentation, so we can understand language proficiency for oral, and learning reflections. So this is one of the what we call academic courses, yeah, communication, tourism, and business, yeah. As for the students, you can see also the number of no is higher than yes, okay. And for those who have said yes, they have they have the experience of using group presentation. For example, semantic is a faculty core courses, okay. Video presentation for the university course, that is TETAS, the Islamic civilization. Group presentation for the ethnic relations, social engagement courses. So this is the university courses. Infographic, project paper, online quiz. So we can say that, okay, they have, even though there are more no than yes, but we could see that, especially for the students, they have the experience, because, for example, for the university courses like TETAS and ethnic relations, that means all of them, they have the experience of using, okay, of alternative assessment. Now, so would they like to continue using alternative assessment post-pandemic, or for the lecturers to continue to incorporate alternative assessment in their courses? So a very high yes, you can see here, okay, and not sure here is about 2, yeah, 10.5, yeah. And the reasons you can see align to the we can say the philosophy, the advantages of alternative assessment. So conventional method is not relevant anymore. It's effective. They found to be effective, flexible. Assessing valued skills that cannot be directly assessed with traditional tests. This is one of the philosophy of alternative assessment. More engaging and varied. Yes, varied a lot. Yeah, you can see the list. There were 10 just now that I listed, but there are more. Engaging, because the students can engage with the material. Lecturers too can engage with the students more, during the whole process of preparing, be it the reports or the portfolio. Students learn how to apply and express their knowledge. We have seen that. And for the students, a very high yes, you can see here, 91.3%. And reason given for yes, they say examinations are rigid and stressful. So it's to say that alternative assessment methods are less rigid, enhance our soft skills, like I say just now, group work, so they can improve their communication skills, interpersonal skills, allow continuous focus on the studying, because it's like alternative assessment, if we compare traditional and alternative, if traditional is more like behaviorist, that is just, to ensure that you get the right answer. But for alternative assessment, we can say that, it's more like constructivism, and we can also look at Vygotsky, this, how do you call it, the social something, whereby they can learn from their peers, they can learn with artifacts, constructivism, because they can construct their knowledge by themselves. And then effective, just like the teachers, better understanding of the course. Students can express their own feelings, thoughts, and also improve their speaking skills, especially in making video presentation. Very clear here. Allow students to be more savvy with technology. So that is very important too. The skills. Now, excerpts from some of the teachers' response with regard to yes. So they say, yes, if appropriate, it allows more flexibility in assessing the different competencies, like I say just now, the competencies. It's not only the reading, the writing, listening, and speaking. That is for proficiency, but also other competencies, especially the soft skills. And also soft skills like just now, interpersonal communication, and then they have also, for example, critical thinking, so you can see it here. Moreover, students can be encouraged to develop other skills apart from cognitive skills. Research, they have to do research, critical thinking, analysis, creativity, problem solving, and ICT skills. So the is for T18 teacher, yes, definitely for elective language courses, continuous assessment without final exam makes much more sense. Of course, for example, at the moment, of course, we have the proficiency courses, but we also have the additional courses like reading skills, writing skills, and speaking skills. Of course, for those courses, we can't have final exam. Usually, we just have the continuous assessment. So that's where, of course, teachers or lecturers can really apply, or conduct, alternative assessment with their students. Yes, because I prefer 100% coursework than final written exams, and alternative assessment gives more freedom in assessing students as understanding, application, and creativity of the content, as opposed to rote memorization and regurgitating the answers. So again, this goes back to just now recall, and memorization. That is, of course, the features, the features of traditional assessment. So you can see the features of alternative assessment here. For the excerpt from students' response, who said yes. Yeah? So you can see here, definitely yes. So the student would like the teachers to continue using alternative assessment, because I think final exam makes me more anxious in terms of waiting for the marks, and that it crams so many topics in a short amount of time, on top of having other major assignments that carries your grade forward. Sometimes my lecturers give some kind of feedback at the end of either the presentation or an essay or any type of alternative assessment, which gives me a sense of security. This is very interesting because, yeah, one of the features of the alternative assessment is, of course, the possibility, okay, the opportunity for the lecturers to give feedback, and of course for the students to know where they can improve on, okay. Yes, because it gives the student the opportunity to demonstrate the depth and scope of what they have learned, okay, rather than being limited to just a few response on a traditional test or exam. Yeah, the features of traditional assessment. Sure, well, it is more convenient, although the workloads are piling up. So there are concerns, when it comes to alternative, especially alternative, when we use alternative assessment to replace final examination. Yeah, you'll see later on some of the concerns. We get to put in creativity in the tasks. We get to explore more softwares and websites in order to complete the assignments. You see, so this is where, of course, they can develop, okay, their computer skills. Yeah, we have freedom to expand creativity, I would say. And the last student said, yes, because I think alternative assessment is less stressful. Again, okay, here anxious, less stressful. Instead of memorizing answers, for example, we practice what we have learned through discussion. Yeah. So you can see they have the possibility to discuss, especially if it's like pair work, group presentations. So of course, that's where it will be less stressful for them, because other colleagues, okay, can feed in, can give opinions rather than they alone, okay, they have to think of the answer. Now, so how is the experience? Okay, we one of the questions also we would like to gauge the experience. Okay, how they rate the experience using alternative assessment to replace the final examination. So you can see that, yeah, good. Yeah, 52.6%, and very good here for the teachers. Whereas for the students, 40%, 40.4% good, and 37.5% very good. So we can say that for both teachers and students, they have they have positive feelings towards, okay, alternative assessment. Now, I was talking about some concerns just now, yeah, with regard to alternative assessment. From the teachers, of course, they were saying like, even though they have very positive feelings, they are very positive about it, but there are some concerns too, okay? They say that alternative assessment reduce the burdens of students, but it may also increase the burdens of lecturers and teachers. Of course, in terms of marking, for example, yeah, and also preparing the tasks, yeah, because they have to ensure, like what you see here, difficulty in ensuring that the tasks given are aligned with the CLOs of course learning outcome of the course, because in exams they are used to it already, so they have already passed year paper whereby that can guide them. But when it comes to coming up with tasks, okay, via alternative assessment and align them to the course learning outcome, then of course that will create extra burden for them. And the other thing, they say alternative assessment cannot cover the scope a final exam covers, and is only capable of assessing a small part of the course content. Yeah, of course, it can develop students' skills and competencies, but then on the other hand, okay, when it comes to the scope of the topic, sometimes alternative assessment, it just covers a small scope. That's what they say. And of course, they are very sensitive to, about maybe not to the liking of all students. Okay, for some students who are independent learners, who are very creative, who like to do research, they're very happy with it. So of course, it's not a burden for them. But for those who prefer to just have a final exam, just revising, memorizing, then of course they would not like, okay, alternative assessment. And the other one is very important to concern of the teacher, insufficient knowledge about alternative assessment. Yes. For the time being, I think for all of us teachers, sometimes we thought that since we are teaching, we are teachers, so we know everything about assessment. No, because there are different types of assessment. So sometimes we need, of course, to update our knowledge. So insufficient knowledge. They also have this fear, okay? They're not too sure, because even when we read, okay, literature on alternative assessment, there are different views. Some says that it's not to replace final examination or summative assessment. Some will say it can be used as additional tools. So these are the things that, of course, lecturers or teachers would like to have more information on. Okay, and also the training. What types of I will moving forward afterward. I will show you why. Yeah. Some concerns from students with regard to alternative assessment, not being given enough time to complete the assessment. Yeah, because for the time being, it's to replace the final examination. So when it comes to final examination, it's during 3 weeks, and sometime, of course, the lecturers they will give assignments. All lecturers give assignments, and they'll be given the same deadline, because remember that the lecturers have to key in the marks, and after that have to have the board meeting. So of course, sometimes it's like students are being asked to submit their assignments in the same week. So yeah, these are the concern of students. View recording oriented assessment is a bit stressful, what the students said, because the time needed to record a video could lead to hours because of many reasons: noise distraction, bad Wi-Fi connection, sound mic problems. So sometimes certain types of tools or techniques or alternative assessment method will demand more effort from the students, or sometimes some students, if they do not have very good, for example, just not like a phone or to do the recording, then of course it will be very stressful for them. Yeah. Or sometimes they do not have, for example, a laptop, for example, so they have to do research. Is very difficult. Writing assessment is a bit tricky, since the students can just copy and paste everything. So this is an issue, especially for us teaching foreign languages, because when we give them assignment, for example, a portfolio or report, so how are we going to assess, okay, the competency in the language, because we know that they copy and paste, so it's like, so we have to, are we going to just like, don't look at that, and we just focus on the content, the way how they put forward their opinions, so this is of course a concern for the students. They feel that it's not fair sometimes. Some students, they're very good, they don't want to copy, they try to write on their own, but of course with lots of mistake. So they're worried about that when they write. When they write everything on their own, lots of mistakes. So how are the lecturers going to mark them? And then there are students who copy and paste. So how are the lecturers going to mark the mistakes? Assessment conducted were irrelevant to the course syllabus, and the marks of for one assessment for a certain subject is too big. So of course sometimes irrelevant to the course and syllabus. Sometimes it's like, especially when it comes to final examination, you have to think of for teachers too, for, like I said just now, insufficient knowledge. So that's why sometimes lecturers or teachers will just choose a type of alternative assessment to be able to give marks for that course. So sometimes, but it is irrelevant to the course sometimes. Lecturers were not too strict in giving marks. That is also just now the subjectivity, reliability, validity. So conclusion from the study is that both teachers and students declared having a good knowledge of alternative assessment. So that is very good news for us, because it looks like, students and lecturers, teachers, they have good knowledge of that. Both teachers and students showed positive feelings. That's also very good. They showed positive feelings towards the use of alternative assessment. That means there is hope, okay? Maybe not for the time being, to when there's physical teaching, we still need to have our final examination, because it is stated in our MQ form. So we still have to continue, but maybe for the continuous assessment, instead of having tests and quizzes, so being positive, I have showed positive feelings is really good for the news for the teachers. Positive comments from the teachers, students with regard to alternative assessment. Just now, again, it's just summarize: effective, flexible. Students encouraged to develop other skills apart from cognitive skills. It's engaging and varied. Some concerns mentioned by the teachers and students just now: heavy work burden, not only for the students, in fact, but also for the teachers. Time consuming, both In fact, for the teachers would be the marking, and for the students should be the preparation, scope of course, content covered, okay, and assess, and of course the marking issues, that's very important, not how not to be too subjective, so that the students are confident that they have been marked or graded fairly, Moving forward, so further reflections needed on the use of alternative assessment for language teaching and learning post-pandemic. So just now I say to replace traditional assessment or as additional tools to traditional ones. So again, these are the things where teachers or lecturers would like to have information on. Okay, with which level of students, when it comes to, when they have zero knowledge in the foreign language, can we do alternative assessment with them? What type of alternative assessment? For example, of course, with beginners, we can't ask them to do portfolio or reports, summaries, what type of courses? Because just now we have the proficiency and academic courses. So of course, with academic courses, higher level, better. Okay, and then empowering lecturers, teachers to training in alternative assessment. So we, how to empower teachers is of course to give training to them, to give them information to, about what alternative assessment is. That is of course referred to also the top points just now, and empowering students by having discussion with them on their wish when conducting an alternative assessment. So it would be good also that students have a say, because they are the one who prepare. And remember that they say that alternative assessment, sometimes the marking is quite subjective. So we have to ensure that, okay, whatever it is, okay, our aim is to motivate students in their learning, and our aim is also to assess what needs to be assessed, So it'd be good, to find out from students themselves, okay, what are the types of alternative assessment they would like to have, So to finish off, so remember this citation. Assessment is the key to language teaching. Only through the assessment lens can learners find out if they are meeting their goals, to what extent those goals are being met, and what they still need to do. Through the feedback received, our students' motivational fires are fed. So this is just the final word to say that assessment is very important. It's the key to language learning. And of course, we always talk about motivation, okay? Learning language, how to motivate the students, of course, through them getting a grade, certificate, so that they can proceed. Or of course, okay, it's always that is their aim. All right. So just the references. So thank you, terima kasih, and merci. Okay. So I will now stop sharing. Okay. All right. So that ends my presentation. So now I would like to hand over the session to Nur Ain. I hope that I was not like what we call the French train, that is a TGV, train grande vitesse, because we have like 30 to 40 minutes. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pat, for a very insightful sharing session indeed, on sharing on how alternative assessment can be decontextualized as compared to traditional assessment, and by taking into consideration the processes involved, techniques and tools to be used to measure students' performance, potential, abilities and creative capacities, and more pertinent on how we as educators should take stock on how to overcome teachers and students' concern on alternative assessment. Dr. Pat, thank you very much. Actually, we have two questions from our participants for today. The first question is from Mr. Benedict Franz Dolman, and his question is like this. What about self-made rubrics crafted by the teacher for a particular performance task? Can it be considered as an authentic assessment?
Yeah, when we talk about rubrics, of course, that is very important. In fact, when we want to conduct alternative assessment, yeah, because as we know, for example, if it's traditional assessment, usually, of course, we have the answer key, okay, so that will help us to do the marking. The self-made rubric. Okay. When we talk about rubric, of course, we have to share with the students, okay, so that that will give them guidance in when they prepare, okay, their work, okay, so that they feel more confident. Now, uh, when but then your question just now, self-made rubric to be used as alternative assessment, is that it? If it is a self-made rubric uh, to be used as alternative assessment, it's the students who will say, okay, at this level, what should I be able to do? So they can, of course, prepare their own portfolios. So yeah, we talk about portfolios there, learning portfolios, whereby the learners, okay, they'll say, okay, at this level, I have done this, you know. So, but then again, it still have to refer to what, okay, a learner should be able to do at that level. Yeah. So the question just now was not very clear, but I think that it's more like the students have their own self-made rubric as an alternative assessment, or the teachers preparing this rubric for the
Is,
alternative assessment. Mhm.
is the self-made rubrics crafted by the teacher? Crafted by the
Or
teacher.
okay,
Okay.
crafted by the teacher. Yeah, then I answer the questions just now. Self-made rubric, yes, that is very important. Yeah, especially when you want to use alternative assessment. Like I said, that to give it to the students earlier, so that that will be a guidance for them to prepare. Okay, be it their portfolios or the reports. You know, if not, they will put anything and everything, and at the end of the day, it will be very tough for the lecturers to grade it later on, you know. Yeah.
Okay. We have another one from Mr. Arif. The text was translated from Bahasa. The question
Okay.
is, to what extent online assessment can enhance learners' achievement and teachers' feedback? To what extent online assessment can enhance learners' achievement and teachers' feedback? Over to you, Doc.
Okay, to what extent online assessment
Can
can
enhance learners' achievement and teachers' feedback.
online assessment, yeah. uh well, because I think most of us, we are familiar, you know, with our Moodle, you know. On our Moodle, of course, students can, how do you call it, submit their work, and then we will grade it, and then of course we will put our comments. Yeah, but then again, of course, students have access to the comments. Yeah. Now the thing is, if we wanted uh, to be effective, of course, we have to inform the students that they have to look at the comments, and then we can work on it together during our online classes. Hmm? Yeah. But then just now the question was, to what extent online assessment, isn't it?
Yes. To
Okay.
what extent online assessment can
Okay.
enhance learners' achievement?
Yeah.
And second one on teachers' feedback, two components actually.
Yeah. Just yeah, because when you talk about online assessment, of course, is it online synchronous or asynchronous? You see, I remember, of course,
Yeah, very true.
when it is online assessment, I mean, online assessment is whatever we do online. You know, when it's a synchronous, it's like when it's a presentation, you know.
Yeah.
You see, so of course we can give our feedback right away. Hmm? Or for example, asynchronous, for example, if it is like assignment, we give them and then they have to submit it through the Moodle, just now, like I say, and we mark it, we read it, and then we give the comments. So, of course, it's effective only if both parties, of course, they work on it.
Yeah, they
Okay.
agree to it. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dr.
they
Pat.
agree to it. Yes, to say that okay, we will work on the feedback. Yeah, given. Yeah, be it individually or in groups. Yeah, and of course now with Zoom, we can put them into breakout room, and they can also, of course, have discussion on the feedback given. Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
I hope I've answered the question because online assessment is a big term. You know, sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, today the participants are very active. Actually, we have another two more questions coming in,
All
Doctor.
right.
The next one is from Mr. Elmi Azri Mat Jamial, or Miss, I'm not sure, Elmi Azri, on classroom-based assessment. Yeah. The questions is like this. Classroom-based assessment is becoming more central nowadays, but teachers are not trained in it, thus causing problems. So how do we overcome this problem?
Okay, that's a very good question because I'm also like looking. I've read a thing on classroom-based assessment. I'm not an expert on assessment. To tell, I mean, I have to be truthful on that. So I'm also reading on that. Yeah. So I'm sorry that I can't answer that question. Yeah. So you see, because assessment, there are many ways to assess students. Yeah. Uh, but I hope to read on that, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Perhaps we need to do some research on it, yeah, in the
Yeah.
context of Malaysia, yeah, because
Yes.
that would that would be very great. Actually, I have one question from myself. Actually, I'm very interested when Dr. Pat was saying that when we're doing alternative assessment, we shouldn't have more than 2 alternative assessment at one time. Is it so? Why is it so?
Okay.
Last one,
Well,
perhaps.
in this case, you know, it's like we have seen just now the features, okay, of alternative assessment is that the students have to use their creativity, critical thinking. They have to do research. So you can imagine, okay, like already it's time consuming for them. Okay, so let's say if we have more than 2, okay, let's say for final examination to replace it, of course that is not very good. Okay. uh, and then the other thing is that no matter what the assessment we give, or alternative assessment, we can assess them in a very broad manner. You know, we not only cognitive just now. So we have, because the thing is, we want to see how the process is, okay, and we want to also assess their understanding. Okay, so if you have very small alternative assessment, it's still going back like the traditional one. You know, it's like you just test on one, okay, one component, another component. You know. So
Okay.
that's why it's better. It's always like, you know, even for one semester, let's say 14 weeks, okay, if you have a number of students, it's not only because of that you want to assess the different skills or competency because you want to see that, but also because of the time. Hmm? Yeah.
Yeah. Of the time constraint.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pat. Very
Okay.
insightful indeed. Yeah, it answered my questions. And then actually we have come to the end of the session for today. And I would like to thank again Dr. Patricia for sharing her findings on the use of alternative assessment during the pandemic. Perhaps as educators, we can take stock and learn from the experiences as the way forward. And perhaps to look at our current assessment practices to match the new norms of assessment and learn how to empower ourselves as educators and our students to move forward with alternative assessment, using alternative assessment post-pandemic. So many ideas we're bringing home today, ladies and gentlemen. For your information, Dr. Patricia's presentation can be accessed via the Google Drive links to be shared by our secretariat later on. And this concludes our webinar for today. And thank you all for attending. And we hope you have learned and enjoyed the session. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Educational Technology Division, MOE, for the digital platform we're using today. And of course, those who are working behind the scenes for making today's webinar possible. Our gratitude to our studio producer, Mr. Shahrul Azhar Ali, and producer, Dr. Suras Kanagasabai, and not to mention our lovely repertoires. Ladies and gentlemen, before I sign off, please join us again for the next upcoming webinar, which will be held this coming Tuesday, the 21st of September, with a speaker from Korea. And it will be live at 3 p.m. Malaysian time. Lock the date. And finally, before going off, I love to wish my fellow Malaysians Selamat Hari Malaysia in conjunction with our Malaysian Day, celebrated annually every 16th of September. Happy birthday, Malaysia. Love you, Malaysia, and proud to be Malaysian. Till then, goodbye from Malaysia.